concept I want to go over with you is business. Business. There is personality based and system based. Have you ever heard those terms before?
Yes.
What do they mean?
Personality.
Shauna.
Okay, so personality based is where it's driven by the person themselves. People want to see just that doctor because they have such a great beingness.
Okay, good. Wait.
Systems is when you've got systems in place, you know, flow, and this person's a system, they walk in, X, Y, and Z, so that the clinic actually runs without that person having to be there handling the
Excellent. Did you guys duplicate what they said?
Yeah.
So one is it's based on the personality of the person who started the business. The other is based on systems to run the business. Correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So let me just tell you about business. One of the hardest things to do on this planet is to start and run a successful business. How many people in here ever ran their own business? How many tried? Oh, I don't want to put anybody on the spot. Okay. So do you guys know the failure rate of businesses?
80%.
Within
2 years.
Within the first 2 years. 80% of businesses within the first 2 years fail. That's a high, high stat. 80%. That's 10 people start a business. Only 2 of them are left after 2 years. Do you understand that?
Yeah.
So the ones that survive are ones that do this.
Really?
They do whatever it takes to succeed.
Wow.
Right? Has anybody here ever been in the business more than 2 years that they've owned? And did you do that?
Call me.
Did you ever fix a toilet?
What's that?
Did you ever fix a toilet?
No, I didn't have to do that.
I have.
Financial business.
Did you ever change a light bulb?
I'm 5'1", no.
Okay. Did you ever trim a frayed carpet?
No, but I've done a whole heck of a lot of other stuff. In the
Okay,
office.
give me some examples.
Oh my gosh, I don't even know. I bought jelly beans for the front thing.
Okay.
And old stuff, I don't know, there's so much, I don't even know, bought food for the refrigerator, making sure things, I mean, flowers. I make
whatever it
flower
takes.
arrangements, so.
Did you ever clean a window?
No,
Did you ever straighten furniture?
yes,
Did you ever vacuum?
yes.
Yeah. So a lot of people think when there's a business owner, like they're sitting in some tower somewhere. That's not the way it starts. They're the people that go out of business. The ones that stay in the business are the ones that do whatever the hell it takes to stay in business. And they'll do whatever. I've changed toilet or fixed toilets, changed light bulbs, knocked down cobwebs, trimmed the frayed carpet, picked up the trash in the parking lot, wondered why my staff walked right over it and didn't see it. But that didn't happen for the first 10 years. Do you know why?
Is your personality based?
No, because for the first 10 years, I was the first one in the office and the last one to leave. For the first 10 years of my business, I was the only one with a key. For the first 10 years of business, I was the only one with an alarm code. Because I didn't trust anybody. I had to do it. I had to do everything. And I did whatever it took. When I opened my business, so I did whatever it took. If you don't do that, you're probably going to fail. Do you understand that? And almost every business started off that way. I'm fortunate that I get to see both ends of the business spectrum. We deal with a lot of chiropractors, and a lot of the chiropractors we deal with are personality based. But where I lived in Atlanta, Quentin was at my house and Eric was at my house. It was a really nice neighborhood. It was like the nice neighborhood. And across the street from us, well, here's how it went. To this side of us, she was the CFO of a company and he was the CEO of a company. The other side of us was a veterinarian and her husband who was an investor in orchids in South America. I got to meet all these people and I got to talk to them about stuff like this. Now they were all in it when there was systems written. So they didn't actually get to see this part. But the systems is how a big company stays big or gets big. So it goes just like this. And this is from my observation from dealing with these different people. Anyway, basically it's like this. You become a business, you do whatever it takes. But eventually you're going to hit a point where you can't do anymore. So you start getting busy. Like this is how it went for me as a chiropractor. It was just me, and I thought, I need somebody to answer the phone. But I couldn't afford to pay somebody full time. So I thought, well, the busy times are going to be in the afternoons and evenings. So I hired a girl to come in and answer the phones from 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock. Because I couldn't keep running back answering the phone while I was treating. Well, that lasted for about a month, and then I had to have more people. So I started expanding. So I started bringing people in, and as I brought people in, I would give them the easy duties. I would say, what do I actually not have to do? Well, I have to treat the patients, so I did all the treatment of the patients, but I don't have to answer the phone, I don't have to greet people, and I don't know anything about billing, so then I hired somebody to do billing, right? Started doing that. I had two and a half employees, and then all of a sudden I realized, I'm so busy I can't put all the people on therapy, so I hired a girl and had to train her on how to do the therapy. And then I was getting busy even developing the x-rays, so I trained that same girl how to develop the x-rays, but I was still taking them. Eventually I got to the point where I had to hire somebody who was licensed to take x-rays because I was too busy to do that. So what happened was I started giving away the tasks that I didn't need to do. But I was still a personality-driven business. My father was a personality-driven business. He started off, had nothing to do with healthcare. He rented floor mats that would go in front of a door of a business. And the reason he did that is, in the Northeast at least, and pretty much everywhere, if it's raining and somebody comes out, it's raining and their feet are wet and they walk into your business and they slip and you didn't do anything to prevent that, you're in big trouble. So he would lower their risk by renting them these mats. What's the problem with that?
You only do so many mats.
Well, not from his business, but from the customer's point of view. In 2 weeks, that mat looked like crap. So when my dad got the idea, he said he had a station wagon, and he found some guy who could clean these mats. They were vinyl backed. So he'd buy mats, and every time he bought one, he'd buy another one identical. And he'd go to a business and say, look, I could put this mat down, and I'll come back in 2 weeks and roll that one up and put down this other one, and it'll be a service. Every 2 weeks, I'll do it. He started doing it. Started off him in a station wagon.
Sustainable.
Yeah, eventually he got to the point where he had the factory, he had the scrubbing machines, he had the drying room, he had like 15 employees. I was one of them. He had 4 trucks on the road, but he was still a personality-driven business because he gave away the menial tasks or the working tasks, but all the decisions of that company were made by him. Now, I worked for my dad when I was in high school, and he worked insane hours and handled an insane amount of stuff. So here's what happened. He retired when he was the age that I am now. I'm going to be 57. So he retired. He was dead by 62. Had cancer. He didn't know he had cancer when he retired. They said he must have had it for 10 years. And I'm convinced from working for him, the job killed him. Do you understand that? Because here's what happens. You start getting busier and you give away all the things you can give away, and pretty soon you go, well, I can't give away the stuff I have left. So you start to juggle it. It's like somebody spinning plates on a stick. You put a stick up, you spin a plate and you get it going. You can get 2 of them going, you can get 3 of them going. The first one starts wobbling. You go back and spin that one. That one, maybe you can put another one up. That one's wobbling. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Eventually you're going to get to the point where you can't do that anymore and there are going to be plates crashing all over the place. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. This is exactly what it's like in business. So what happens to a personality-driven business is their stats will start to go up because they work real hard and they go, oh, that was really hard. And they take a little break, and their stats start to crash. And they start working real hard again. Oh my God, the stats are down. And they go, oh, look, I got higher than last time. I'm going to take a break. And that's called roller coastering stats. That is the symptom or the diagnosis of a personality-driven business. And how many of your Regis have been on the phone with me? Anybody who's in here? You've been on the phone with me.
Yeah.
You've heard me on the phone. Have you ever heard me say this to a client? Talked about these stats?
Yeah.
I would say 100% of the time they started laughing. I'd say, does that sound familiar? I've never had anybody say no. Except for the guys who have like 15 practices. Oh, I haven't been into practice for like 5 years. Right? They obviously have done some of this. So there's degrees of being system-driven versus personality-driven. Do you understand that? What happens is, this is the hard part of becoming a system-driven business. You have to give up some of the decisions of your company. Let me say that again. You have to give up some of the decisions of your company. And when you talk to some of the chiropractors about this, they'll be like, Now, you've been on the phone enough to hear guys go, oh, I don't have associates because nobody can adjust as good as me. You've heard people say that before, right? That is absolutely a personality-driven business. And I go, well, I'm really glad you're the best adjuster in your own mind. Good luck with that because it's going to kill you. And it will. I thought that at one point. I was adjusting like 120 people a day after day after day. Then you meet somebody who adjusted 300 people a day, and you're like, how do you do that? Right? And I realized I wasn't the best. And you have to give up some of that willingness to let somebody else make a decision. This is how it smacked me right in the face. I got to go fast because we're going to run out of question time. So I had this girl working for me. She came in as a patient. She was 17 years old. She was Hispanic. She came in. She looked completely healthy. She's like, yeah, I get low back pain. That's all she told me. I x-rayed her. She had some degeneration stuff. Started adjusting her. And she comes back, and she's married. I'm like, oh, 17 years old. She's married. Yeah, here's my husband. Adjust him. He's got a problem with his knees. His knee would swell up. I'd start adjusting him. It'd stop swelling up. Then she brings her father. Then she brings her mother. Then she brings her brother. Then she brings her son, who's getting tubes in his ears, and I adjusted him. And he never had to get tubes in his ears. So finally, I'm like, so Martha, why do you keep bringing all these people to me? I mean, she's like, I didn't tell you the whole truth when I first came here. I had a condition called Guillain-Barré. Has anybody ever heard of that?
I've heard of it.
Yeah, it's a brain disorder where your whole nervous system, your consciousness is still there, but all your external nervous system starts to shut down. So she woke up one day at 17 and was laying in bed, and her husband comes up and is like, come on, Martha, let's get up. And she's not moving. Come on, he's shaking the bed, he's shaking her. Then he realizes something's wrong, and she's like, I was totally awake. I couldn't even utter a sound. I was having trouble breathing. He's shaking me. He realizes I'm in trouble. He calls an ambulance. He calls the family. She says, I'm laying in a respirator listening to them all going, is she dying? Is she dead? Can she hear us? And she couldn't even squeeze her hand. I'm like, she goes, so I went to the library, because it was before internet, and I started doing research on Guillain-Barré, because I pulled out of it, and I still had some problems. When I came into you, I had some numbness in parts of my body. I had pains I never had before. And she said, when I was reading this, it said, one of the common traits of people who have Guillain-Barré, but they don't know what caused it, is they've had a large physical trauma in their life. And she said, and I was hit by a car when I was 8 years old, and I spent 3 months in a hospital. I was like, she pulls up her pant legs, and there's these big scars where they drilled the bars in to hold her legs together. And I'm like, holy crap. And she said, the very first adjustment you gave me, I felt it go.
Wow.
I don't know what it was, and now she eventually became my office manager. When we moved down to Georgia, she was running the office. Last time I talked to her was like a month ago. Never came back. They told her, this is going to come back and eventually kill you. Never came back. She's 40 now.
Wow.
I think she's 40. Yeah. So she became my office manager. So I brought her in. She spoke Spanish, and I had these Hispanic guys come in. Oh, I have back pain. And one guy's translating for his brother. He's going, my brother's in pain. The brother's going, oh! I'm like, yeah, I can see that. So every question was, so how about this? Oh! And his brother starts translating for him. So I take x-rays, and then the brother says to Martha, because his English was not even, he came to translate. And that's like in case I had to ask him some life or death question. So Martha started translating. And I said to Martha, okay, they're coming in for a report of findings. I'm sitting there talking. The brother wants to be a patient too. Here's what happens. I'm sitting there and I said to Martha, okay, tell these guys I'll treat them both for a month, 3 times a week for a month for $700. She starts talking to them, blah, 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 blah. She turns around and she goes, okay, they'll do it for $1,700. And she gets up and she starts walking out. She goes just like this. You don't even know what you're worth. And walked out of the room. Wow. And I was like, and then I realized, maybe I'm not the best at everything, and maybe I should come up with some systems to start to hand off these duties. You put systems in place, your business can grow. If you don't, you do this for the rest of your life until you die. You ask any chiropractor who's got a personality-driven business, the most expensive part of a vacation is, what do they tell us?
How much money they lose by not being there.
That's right. It's not the hotel, it's not the airfare, it's none of that. It's how their production drops when they leave. The last time I heard that was the last phone call I did with somebody, which was last week. The guy said, yeah, they find out I'm not there, and then they all come in on Monday, find I'm not there, and nobody shows up until I'm back from vacation. And I'm paying this guy to sit there, and nobody comes in. Because they didn't make this switch. Do you understand that? Here's how you do a system, and it's not too complicated. Basically, what you got to do, if you're going to hand off an important decision for your company, and this is what scares most people. I can't hand off that decision. What if somebody makes the wrong decision? What if I turn around one day and my business doesn't look anything like it used to because I let these other people make the decisions? That's the fear. It's either that or I'm the best and nobody can do it as good as me. That's the psychosis. Okay? So what you have to do is you have to get agreement on philosophy. That's number one. And purpose. What is the reason of this company? And why do we do what we do? If that's the case, do you think these clients should hire us before or after they hire their medical people? Before. A lot of them go, well, yeah, I'm going to hire a medical person, and we heard somebody on the phone last week saying, I got all these medical people lined up, and I have to gently say to them, that's great, but I wouldn't do this unless you're willing to do it without that person. Now, they might be the right person, but just in your mind, decide, do you want to do it without that person? If the answer is yes, then proceed and let's see if it's the right person. But you need to hire us to help you get through that. You guys know the hiring systems as coaches, right? That's why we do that, because it's important that they understand how to hire these people, how to interview these people. Do you understand that? So you have to cover this. So my first interview with a nurse practitioner goes something like this. I'll use Heather. Hey, Bob. So if you're the nurse practitioner, I'd say, listen, it's probably a little weird. It's not so much anymore, but back when I was doing this, it's probably a little weird that you're applying for a job with a chiropractor, and they'd be like, yeah. I go, so I just want to be honest with you, what I'm looking for, and it might not be what you're looking for, and I'd rather do that now on the phone or here in person, and have you find out on the first meeting, and then we can part ways friends, instead of finding out when you get the job. See, the worst thing about applying for a job is not getting a job, it's getting it and then finding out a month later you hate it, right? And she just smiled. It's what every one of them does. Yeah, you're right. So I go, so is it okay with you if I'm honest with you about what I'm looking for?
Definitely.
Good. So I don't want a practice that does family practice. So we don't want to be prescribing any narcotics, any antidepressants, any opioids or anything like that. We're not going to do blood pressure, cholesterol, diabetes, antibiotics, or anything like that. What do you think about that? Then I'm letting them know, and what I started finding is the nurse practitioner would be like, yeah, that's why I'm here, because I'm leaving that because I hated that as a family practice. That's how I know that the medical community is prime for doing what we're doing, more than most of these doctors know. Like when we say no opioids and no antidepressants, at least 50% of them, maybe 60, go, thank God. That's how they go. They know what those drugs do. They're prescribing them, right? So I'm very honest about philosophy and purpose. The second thing we have to do is, benchmarks. What's a benchmark? Not a standard. That's number 3.
It's an exact target where you want to get.
That's right. How do you make a cup of coffee? What's the benchmarks for making a cup of coffee? What do you need? You need hot water? You need grounds? You need a filter? You need a coffee maker? You need electric? And how do you do it? Well, then there's steps to it. They're all benchmarks. What's the difference between a benchmark and a standard?
Standard's how well you do it.
Yeah, it's the level you do it to. Our standards are usually written with will always or will never as the first 2 words in the standard. We'll never let the phone ring more than 3 times before it's answered. We'll never let a patient walk in and not be greeted. Do you understand that? We've written, I mean, we sat in our basement and wrote all these systems. So we had them. That's how we run our own practice. That's what we're trying to get across to these guys. That's why they're all in that manual. If those guys don't read the manual, the ones that read the manual come back and go, man, that's great. Have you ever noticed that? Yep. The ones that don't go, yeah, that's just a bunch of stuff. Yep. Let me translate what that means. I probably have a reading problem. That's why I didn't read it. So I'm just justifying that's just a bunch of stuff. Right?
Yeah.
Is this helpful?
Yeah.
So do you understand what these guys have to go through to get from here to here?
Yep.
Getting here, none of the other consulting companies even consider that. What makes us different more than anything else, and then I can talk to you about this privately when we get more time, but is number 1 is who? What's our number 1 goal?
To handle.
What is it?
Healthcare.
No.
Money.
Patient outcome.
When we have, yes. Say it again.
Patient
Say it
outcome.
again. Say it again.
Outcome.
Number 2. What's number 2?
Compliant.
Compliance. What's number 3? That's the difference between us and any of our competition, hands down. Would you agree? Would you agree?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I love doing this, and I will come back at least once a month and do this at least once a month through the fall. Deal?
Thank you.